Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. One of my favorite things about this channel, about this community, is the fact that, for the fans, by the fans, means something. I'm not some media member with a narrative and trying to present something to you guys. This is a conversation. This is about what you believe, what I believe. Sometimes we agree. Sometimes we disagree. That's the beautiful thing about the comment section. We can go back and forth. We can debate. We can talk about this Tennessee Volunteers football team that we love. We eat, sleep, and breathe Tennessee football all day, every day. It's the middle of April, and we can sit here and talk about Tennessee football. But what I like to do sometimes is take one of your comments and kind of turn that into a video, and that's what happened earlier this morning. JJ Banks, been a part of this community for a long time, I think going back to the days before we even did live streams. Shout out to JJ Banks. He says, I don't understand it. It seems like every single year for the past 10 to 12 years, we worry about the same thing. That's depth on the offensive line. Why can we not build quality depth? Why? I mean, every year Heupel has been here, it's always been depth on the offensive line. Are we ever going to get good depth on that offensive line? Well, and I responded to JJ, and he's right. I mean, it has been a problem since Josh Heupel has been here, and we can make excuses. We can talk about the NCAA investigation. We can blame whoever we want. Bottom line is Glenn Ellerbe was kind of on the hot seat with this fan base until he signed that class of 24. You had William Satterwhite, Max Anderson, Bennett Warren, all three four-star prospects, all three around top 300 guys. I mean, that was a solid haul for Glenn Ellerbe in the class of 24. Then he went out and got Lance Hurd via the transfer portal. So I think Glenn Ellerbe kind of working his way back here, but you look at 22 and you look at 23, and there were some big holes there. You start with the class of 22. Addison Nichols was the highest signed offensive lineman in that class. He's now at Arkansas. You signed a bunch of three-stars. Mo Clipper, who is also transferred out. He's now at Charlotte. Brian Grant, Messiah Reddick. You're waiting on those guys. They were three-star prospects. Are they getting developed, or are they just kind of, sitting on the bench? Savion Herring kicked off the team. Then you look at the class of 23. There was a lot of buzz and a lot of hype around that class of 23, but the bottom line is you missed on Francis Mauigoa, you missed on Lucas Simmons, you missed on Stanton Ramway, you landed Sham, you landed a bunch of three-stars, and that's where we are missing the depth. That class of 22, that class of 23, again, 24, pretty solid. So now we move ahead and we look at the class of 2025. And I think the narrative, what a lot of people are talking about on the message boards, is that Glenn Ellerbe is casting a wider net in this class of 25. Obviously, at the top of the list, David Sanders, Josh Petty, grew up a Tennessee fan, Andrew Babalola, Douglas Utu, Jalen Matthews, Juan Gaston, Dontrell Glover. Pretty wide cast of characters there that Tennessee has a legitimate shot. A lot of those guys ranked inside the top 300. But the big one, the number one guy, is David Sanders. This came out on Twitter just recently. You see Evan Crowell there saying April the 13th. You see the picture. That's Jalen Matthews and also David Sanders, two highly rated offensive tackles. David Sanders, the number 2 ranked player in the country overall, according to the On3 industry rankings. Big-time prospects. Now, April the 13th, that's the orange and white game. Jalen Matthews kind of quote retweeting it there, tagging David Sanders, eyeball emoji. But the good news is this. Not only are both of these guys going to be here for the orange and white game, David Sanders is now double booked. He's going to be here this weekend, going to spend some time with George, be around this coaching staff, back-to-back weekends. That is huge. Also has an official visit scheduled to come back to Tennessee. And I get it. The number one question is, does Tennessee, do they really have a shot here at David Sanders? We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. But you know what? Do the YouTube stuff for me. Hit the thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Also, if you're new to the Talkin VAWLS Network, welcome. As I said at the top of the video, we're not media here. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We don't pretend to know more than you guys in the audience. We're all Tennessee fans, for the fans, by the fans. If you like what we do, make sure you subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. You won't miss out when we go live or when we drop videos. Going to be live Sunday night. Fan call-in show. That's where you guys get to come on, drive the show. Always a good time, but make sure those memberships are up to date. Hit that join button just below. Right beside subscribe, it says join. You can do that for as little as $1 a month, but you get access to the fan call-in shows, custom Talkin VAWLS emojis, all kinds of fun perks and benefits. But if not, let's just talk some Tennessee football, because that's what this channel is all about. Now, I played this clip the other day, and I'm going to play it again, because when we're talking about David Sanders, does Tennessee have a legitimate shot at signing the 5-star offensive tackle? Let's go listen to two of the best in the business. That's Steve Wiltfong and Chad Simmons talking Tennessee recruiting, specifically on the offensive line. Let's take a listen.
Do you think Tennessee has a real shot at landing the #1 offensive tackle in America?
The simple answer is yes. That they're very much in the mix, Josh. I mean, you probably agree, Steve. I think we've talked about him before, obviously with Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, but Tennessee's right there, a major school there. I think position of need probably starts with the offensive line at Tennessee, from David Sanders to Juan Gaston to Jalen Matthews. You mentioned Andrew Babalola. They're in for some top offensive linemen, and that's a big need. That and D-line, I think, are 1 and 2 for them in this class this cycle. They're very much involved with David Sanders.
He's made some rounds this spring: Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State. He has officials coming up with them, South Carolina, but Tennessee, they still have their 2 visits, an unofficial in April and then the official visit in June. Feels a great connection with that coaching staff. I think Tennessee absolutely is very much in it for David Sanders Jr., and anyone projecting a school for him right now, I think, is premature, because I could still see him ending up at a few different places.
So that's 2 of the best in the business, talking about David Sanders, talking about Tennessee having a legitimate shot to land the 5-star offensive tackle. And, a couple of the names they mentioned there, David Sanders, Andrew Babalola, I think that's more of an outside shot looking in, but he's a 5-star offensive tackle out of Kansas, 6'5", 280 pounds. VolQuest just put out an update today saying Tennessee having really good dialogue there with Andrew Babalola and some, one of the select teams that's standing out early in his recruitment. So we'll see what Glenn Ellerby can do there with Andrew Babalola, but the big guy, the big fish is David Sanders, right? The 5-star offensive tackle. I'm going to pull up his profile if you're not familiar with who he is, but #2 ranked player in the country, the top offensive tackle. I think this is how you sign that top 5 class. I think you've got to go get David Sanders, and you're listening to Steve Wiltfong tell you, hey, this is big. He's going to be back on campus for the orange and white game. He's also going to officially visit during the summer, but now piggyback that visit this weekend. David Sanders is going to be here back-to-back weekends. Top 5 was dropped back in March: Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, and South Carolina. Just coming off of a visit with Ohio State this past weekend for the second time. There was a lot of buzz that it was Tennessee and that it was Clemson, and Georgia was on the outside looking in. But after that visit to Ohio State, a lot of buzz there. They're making a move. Do they have a shot? Grew up a Clemson fan, but guess what? Josh Petty, 4-star offensive tackle, grew up a Tennessee fan. He seems to be trending away from Tennessee. That doesn't always factor in 100% with the decision, but he grew up a Clemson fan, really likes their offensive line coach, Matt Luke. Steve Wiltfong put out an update talking about Tennessee, said, I think Tennessee is another school that doesn't get enough burn in the recruitment of David Sanders. I think the Vols are a place that he can really see himself as really connected with the coaching staff. He's visiting there in April. Will return again for an official visit. So 2 more visits, now 3, if you add this weekend, in play for the Vols, David Sanders, before he makes that college commitment. Also has a great relationship with George McIntyre, right? He's a guy that has connected with George, been around George, and George is going to have that opportunity to peer recruit again coming up over the next couple of weekends. He's a guy that's around campus quite a bit. But another guy that was involved in that tweet exchange that I showed earlier that's going to be in town for the orange and white game is Jalen Matthews. So we talk about David Sanders, 5-star, #1 ranked offensive tackle in the country. That's going to be a tough one. Andrew Babalola, 15th best player in the country, 3rd-ranked offensive tackle. Those are legitimate 5-star prospects that Tennessee is deep in it with. Now, who's the fallback guy? Previous years, when we talk about 22, when we talk about 23 in the misses, the fallback guys were 3-stars. They were developmental guys that you kind of hope you can develop and grow like Maurice Clipper and Brian Grant and Messiah Reddick, those type of players. And they didn't necessarily work out, or they're not yet. Who's the fallback guy in this class? Or is it even a fallback guy? But Jalen Matthews is a guy that I think Tennessee has set themselves up nicely with, and you can see he's a top 250 prospect, 227th nationally on 3, has him as the 75th best player in the country. He dropped his top 6, Georgia, Maryland, Miami, Rutgers, Syracuse, and Tennessee. Matt Ray at the end of February said that Tennessee crushed. He said they crushed their first visit and have a lot of his attention right now. He's a guy that when George McIntyre committed, went immediately to Twitter and said, hey, by the way, you need somebody to block for you? I would be happy to do that. So, again, another prospect that I think Tennessee is in a good spot with. Also mentioned in that video from Chad Simmons, Juan Gaston, another 4-star prospect. So, again, you've got a body of guys here all four of them inside the top 300, top 250. Juan Gaston ranks 145th nationally, 6'7", 345 pounds, listed there as an interior offensive lineman, but also being recruited to play tackle, can probably play both. He's going to actually be in town this weekend as well. So again, I think you got a pretty good body in the class of 24. Now you're trying to double that up with stack the recruiting classes, right? The class of 25. The key is you're not going to land all these guys. You're never going to land all the guys, but can you land your fair share in order to build this offensive line and it no longer become what JJ said has been a problem for 10 to 12 years, but now a strength of this football program moving forward, similar to what we've seen Rodney Garner do with that defensive line. But I wanted to put out a big update because, first and foremost, I wanted to talk about David Sanders because it's absolutely huge that he added another visit. Going to be in town back-to-back weekends and then go into those official visits over the summer. But also you got David Sanders, Babalola, Jalen Matthews, Juan Gaston. A lot of talent on that offensive line. Can Glenn Ellerbe close? I think that's going to be the question. What do you guys think? Jump in the comment section. Let's talk about it. As always, smash the thumbs up on the way out the door. Go check out the Talkin VAWLS merch, bonfire.com/store/Talkin VAWLS. That link is in the description below. Hope to see you guys Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time fan call-in show, but that is going to do it for this one. This is the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.